Schmidt.
Hello.
Bottoms up on another thrilling podcast. Outwit Outlast, season 49 of Survivor. We're going to recap this episode fresh right after it aired. Super much in our brains. I didn't even bring any notes.
Oh my gosh.
How are you tonight?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm excited to talk about the merge.
Yeah.
And I probably also have a personality outside of Survivor, but unclear.
What? What does that mean?
I just feel like every time you ask me how I am, I say, I'm excited about Survivor.
I really thought that 24/7, all you did was walk around talking about, thinking about, dreaming about Survivor.
I actually had several Survivor dreams this week.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
What happened? Don't tell me you got voted out.
It's always stressful. Like, there's always, like, I'm on the bottom and I've got to figure out how to make friends with the right, or I'm just, like, on a tribe where everyone hates me. It's never, like, I'm never about to win.
Do you think that this merge was stressful for the participants?
You know what? I think it should have been, but I think at the beginning, I think it was really stressful for the three who just voted out Shannon, but the rest of them seemed very, like they should have been more stressed out.
I know. I agree with you. So we started the episode with the can I just go on record as saying I think that's one of the worst alliance names we've ever had.
Yeah, bottoms up. Not the best. I understand what Stephen was going for there. I don't think I'm going to like saying it if they become a major alliance. I'm afraid I'm going to have to keep saying bottoms up, and I don't really want to.
No, I've done it 3 times already in the space of 5 minutes, but I think that's just a shock to my system. In the same vein, it's funny that at the competition, Geoff went out of his way to get the correct terminology for Soph and Sophie, but then it seemed like the tribes just went straight back to Yellow Sophie and Blue Sophie in their confessionals.
My take on that is that both of them wanted to be called Sophie, and Yellow Sophie went for it and said, yeah, she's Soph, I'm Sophie. And Blue Sophie kind of maybe didn't want that. Like, Blue Sophie was like, yeah, we're happy to be called Yellow Sophie and Blue Sophie. And then Yellow Sophie was like, no, I'm Sophie. Which I think was a bold move by her. I am actually a little worried for her that the name confusion will make it easier for everyone to choose to vote her out eventually.
So that threesome came up with a terrible name. I've never seen a group more awkward at a merge than they were.
I know.
And when they got the announcement of drop your buffs, the other 2 groups were like shouting and hugging. It didn't matter what the alliances were. And those 3 were just stony faced, like, oh, what do we do now? I'm a little, maybe it's just the weight of keeping a big secret that made them feel like aliens pretending to be Survivor players, but
yeah.
It was awkward.
Yeah. I mean, I think, first of all, I feel like they should be having a little more fun. Like, I feel like everyone else is having fun and is really excited about the merge. And, like, Sage especially, like, I'm not sure she's, like, happy to be there at this point. Like, is she okay? Like, I feel like she should be a little excited. But second of all, they were right that they were in the most precarious position and that it was going to be a big reveal and that they were going to have to really get their story straight and it would be hard. And whatever time they needed to take to be serious aliens, like, it worked. They told a very convincing story about how Shannon went home that was not really true. And they managed to do it consistently. Like, no one broke and told other people what had really happened. And I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, I was too. At first, I thought, well, this is sort of silly. You don't really need to lie even that much. You can just say that she wanted Jawan's name out, and we all realized she was playing the game too hard and turning on us, so we voted her out.
Yeah.
But the meltdown lie seemed to distract them from the more obvious truth, and it worked the whole time. So props to them.
I know. Kind of baffling to me that it worked so well, and I think there are maybe a few reasons why. One of which being maybe genuinely like the whole spiritual, like happy positive vibes thing really does come across as suspicious a tiny bit to everyone. So even her closest allies were like, "Yeah, I'd buy that she had a breakdown." Um,
Yeah.
which is a little sad. But the other thing I think is just that Savannah and Rizzo and Nate went into this merge way too confident and way, I think, underestimating Sage again. I think Shannon did the same thing. I think that all of them just think that she's incapable of lying.
Yeah. And Sage is pretty quick to recognize that in other players. She has a good radar for when she's being devalued.
Yeah.
And it's funny because all of the anger and contempt that I was picking up last episode seemed to kind of melt away in her confessional. It was just strategy. She just talked about they got a big threat out early. But I don't know if I buy that. I feel like she, the way that she is immediately pivoted to Savannah, suggests a very different um, gameplay.
Yeah. I still think that she is playing strategically, but her targets are all emotional. Like, I think she is on like a mean girl crusade, and everyone she perceives as a mean girl has to be the next person to go. And for her now, that's Savannah. And I just think that that's not actually the most strategic move. I think the rest of her tribe had a better, more strategic target, and they were correct. And she like didn't want to go with that, and she did ultimately. But yeah, I think that like she seemed less openly angry this episode. I think that maybe she's getting a little used to having to be fake. I think maybe a lot of that vitriol that was directed at Shannon has dissipated a little now that she's gone. But she is still out there just trying to take out the people who make her the most angry. Like, I don't think that's changed.
Yeah. I feel like it's an interesting season because, except for the grand subterfuge of this vote, everybody's kind of. Uh, oh, well, and Blue Sophie is being very careful with that advantage. But Riz and MC are just like, yep, got the idol. I'm playing this as if everybody knows it. This is my new, this is how I'm dealing with the strategy of it. This is who I'm aligned with. Like, they don't seem to be trying too hard to hide much. Now that the true numbers have been revealed from this vote, I'll be curious to see how in the world. I think it might be a weirdly open game, where people don't try to lie very hard. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right that like there are not a lot of secrets in this game. And I mean going back through the whole pre-merge, possibly some of what's been sort of boring about it is that the person who's been voted out each time has felt blindsided. But has anyone else at any point not fully expected who was going home? Like, I think every vote has been up until this point pretty unanimous amongst the other folks, and so it was still like
Mhm.
very surprising to Shannon when she was voted out. But I don't think we've really had votes where there's been like even like a split. Like, I don't think we've had to have a lot of people lying to anyone besides the person they're voting out.
I agree with you. They're trying to tease in the edit just a little bit the possibility that things are more chaotic, say tonight's vote, than.
Yeah.
But they weren't. Like right down the middle, they got everybody on board. I was thinking you were right that Hina is more inexperienced with tribal. They're going to be a little bit more jittery, maybe making a big swing for something crazy, maybe not all on board, but they were just locked in and they
Yeah.
took it down. And they did the right thing. I think that was the safe vote. You've got to whittle away. It's a numbers game right now. It would be tempting to want to put all of your votes on Riz or Savannah, but I think it was smart to take out Nate.
Yeah, so I guess that's what we've alluded to, but not actually said, which is that Joanne and Sage sided with the old Hina along with Alex and voted out Nate, and they chose Nate because they all know that Rizzo has an idol, and they know that Rizzo and Savannah are very close, so it felt like if he was going to play it, the one person he was definitely not going to play it on was Nate.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, was clearly the right vote. And they did seem more scattered than the old Uli in terms of like deciding who they were going to vote on. Sage clearly wanted to vote for Savannah, and she could have done it. Like, I think that this is again where she's making emotional decisions, but she's strategic and she's reading people and she is like on it. Like, those emotional decisions are still like correct decisions, it seems. And I was way off that she would be at risk coming into this. I didn't think that anyone would believe that she hadn't just like completely vengefully blown things up by voting Shannon out. But nobody was even really looking at her, and I don't even know if people are going to be looking at her next week. Yeah.
Hmm. I think they will now, maybe, but um, the the person that had the most sort of joy at that tribal was Juwan for me.
Yeah.
Seeing him confident and relaxed was really nice, you know. And finally, the horror movie analogy uh, returned, and I feel closure now.
Yeah.
I really like
Um,
it how he asked Geoff if he liked horror movies too.
I know. And do you think Geoff actually likes horror movies? I'm not sure I can imagine Geoff watching anything besides Survivor.
uh, that's a good question. I think Geoff probably would have said sure no matter what the genre was, but
Yeah, I Jawan deserves his like flowers for this episode too. I think
yeah,
he also did a good job selling that lie.
yeah,
Clearly, Savannah Rizzo and Nate also underestimate Jawan.
yeah.
And I think he made the right strategic decision. The only thing I think he could have done more of is a little bit of playing the middle a little more and leaving his options a little more open. And that's something that I also think that Blue Sophie could have done a better job of this episode. I was really surprised at everybody coming into this merge, and even people who are really positioned to straddle both sides, just picking a side. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Blue Sophie just picked Savannah and Rizzo, like hands down. She tried to convince Alex to do the same thing. She came into that conversation like, we're picking old Uli, and she like seemed pretty stuck in that. And I felt the same way with Joanne and Sage. They did a better job of playing double agents, but they seem very I'm with the old Hina. And I think that if I were in any of their positions, I think Alex is kind of the only person who played it right, where I would be trying to get all the information from both sides and then make a decision not based on like which side I've picked, but based on like who the targets are for the two sides and how can I stay in this game as someone who is close with people on both sides. Like, how can I weaken both sides in a way where eventually I can build a stronger coalition in the middle around me. So I was just
Yeah.
kind of surprised that everybody came into that like with the potential to be really steering a vote that ultimately they just let sort of a majority steer.
Yeah, it is interesting. I was sort of surprised by Alex, actually. I know that he was the one that talked the most in confessional about, you know, playing both sides against the middle, but in the end, he did just vote with Hina in the way that Blue Soapy voted with
Yeah.
Uli, and I didn't. His vote could have swung the other way, and it would have been it still wouldn't have been enough, but
But two people together could have changed things. And you know what one person could have done alone is flush both idols. I mean, come on. I
yes.
get that Blue Sophie doesn't really want to flush the idols because she has the knowledge of power and she knows where they are. But Alex was so in a position where he could have spread the uncertainty to Rizzo and had him play that idol, and MC played hers, and then there are two idols that are up for grabs, and instead, like, Rizzo still has the idol. So if you're playing this, like, majority versus minority game, leaving someone in the minority with a known idol when you could have spread some uncertainty and flushed it feels foolish to me, especially because if it backfired, it wasn't going to backfire on Alex.
If I'm understanding the advantage correctly, I think Soph missed a good opportunity this time. If she had just taken Savannah into her confidence, they would could have put all of their votes on MC. She could have played her advantage and taken the idol, right?
Yeah.
And
Um,
all,
I
and then MC would have been gone.
Yeah. I think that she didn't do that, one, because she didn't realize that they were in such a minority in
Yeah.
this vote, and also, two, because if I'm Sophie, I kind of want to hold on to that knowledge as power until I really need it. Like, I think it's a really powerful advantage, and if you're still in sort of a safe middle position, like maybe it makes sense to hold on to it and wait until you're like closer to like 7 or 8 and things are a lot more precarious.
Yeah, that's a big impact advantage if you use it at the right time. It'll sway a lot of jury members, but there weren't any jury members yet. It would have been too soon to sort of squander that in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
And
agree with you.
fresh off of Geoff's speech, I think it makes sense that, I mean, Sophie said out loud that she was thinking a lot about it, but I think it makes sense that anyone who had an advantage would be thinking, do I really want to use this now? Or is it going to be a lot more exciting later on? Because Geoff gave this whole speech about how there are still 2 slots available on Survivor 50, and now is the time to be telling your story. And I thought that was really interesting that they kept that in the edit, and I thought it was really interesting that it's become such a sort of central plotline on this current season.
It's really affecting gameplay now. I think people are looking. Look at your big book of notes. I love it. I'm the scribe of Survivor.
I know, it's a really fancy notebook for my Survivor notes.
That's terrific. I love it. What? Oh, the fact that it's driving gameplay for me is on, as a viewer, it hits me on two levels. One, as a fact that affects gameplay, people seem to be much more interested in making big moves, bold moves whenever they can, and not playing it safe. Of course, the vote tonight was playing it safe, so I don't know how much that's going to really affect, but certainly players like Savannah are really thinking hard about that, and that is a very enticing prospect to know that there are 2 slots for Survivor 50 that are open, and there's only 10 of you now left. Means that 1 out of 5 of you is going to go to the next season if you just do something big. That's very tempting. They're going to play differently. They're not going to play it as safe.
Yeah.
As a viewer, I really wish that I hadn't gotten the spoilers of who is going to go. If those are correct, and I think they probably are, and I still don't know why those 2 players are going to go, but it does sort of spoil my viewing just a little bit, which
Yeah.
kind of sucks. But
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's kind of like, it's just like a different viewing experience in some ways. Like, it's interesting in other ways. There's sort of an element of dramatic irony, but it's a little like watching an old season of Survivor when you know who
yeah,
comes back for later seasons. Like, it's a normal thing, I guess, but like watching like Marquesas, knowing that Boston Rob is there and that Sean Rector, even though he never came back, is kind of iconic. Like,
Yeah.
you watch
Yeah.
it a little differently knowing who is gonna become iconic from it. And it is a little frustrating watching a fresh season having these spoilers, especially in a position where like it seems like potentially an underdog story, and like an underdog story is really mostly fun when you like think that like there's no way they're going to get out of this. So yeah, I agree that it's a little frustrating having potential spoilers for it.
It is just a different way of viewing. It's a different set of pleasures because now I know. I mean, when I looked at their faces at the end of this tribal, it was very gratifying because they were pretty sure that they were in the driver's seat. And Savannah looked really pissed, and
Yeah.
Riz looked really surprised, maybe a
Yeah.
little alarmed.
Yeah.
Um, and that was very gratifying.
Yeah.
They have been kind of cocky
Yeah.
for the whole season, and to see that cockiness sort of wiped away was very gratifying.
Yeah, to watch Savannah's eyes like ping around the room as
Oh,
she's
I
trying to
know.
figure out who voted for who, that was great.
Yeah, it was great.
It is really satisfying to see someone who's still sitting there surprised, which is not something we've gotten this season. The other thing about Jeff's speech that I thought was interesting was the way that he like explicitly referred to a career. In his speech, he said, "Now is when you make your career, or someone else makes theirs off your back." And I thought that was a really intense way of saying it, but it was also really explicitly saying something about reality TV that I feel like on dating shows people will sort of allude to it, and it's like a really bad thing on dating shows, like, oh, they're here for the wrong reasons, they're trying to make a career off this. So it's really interesting to see it on Survivor where it's being like explicitly stated by the host, like, this is a chance for you to make a whole career.
I'm a little ambivalent about that actually. It seems to me like it affects the gameplay in a different way. But maybe that's inevitable. And when somebody's on Jeopardy and they have a start to put a big winning streak together, I think they're always thinking about how that's going to affect their lives beyond just the game or the prize money of the game. They could vault into the pantheon of legendary whatever players.
It's interesting on Survivor because I think on a lot of reality TV that's like not competitive shows, like the only way that you can really vault into the pantheon is either by being like so lovable or by being so dramatic, like by having meltdowns and by causing fights and like by kind of becoming a villain. Or you can be like, say it how it is in a very lovable way, but that's probably a really hard thing to know that you're doing in the moment. And probably the easiest thing to know that you're doing in the moment is like causing drama and starting fights and like being aggressive, kind of. But I think on Survivor, there's like a third way to make a career out of it, which is just by being really good at Survivor. So I think, like, in the sense that potentially they're making their careers out of like either just trying to be as authentic as possible, which is, I think, one way, like, that's kind of the way that you become like beloved, I think, on reality TV, is just by being like a really true, honest person. But then there's also this other way in Survivor, which is just by being really good at the game, which is also really compelling and fun to watch as a viewer. That's kind of what like Parvati and Suri did. Like, both were also dramatic and interesting and honest, but like they were also just really good at the game. And then what I hope as a viewer doesn't happen from this, and what makes me a little nervous about them having these open conversations about it, is that people will like just be throwing shit at the wall and like causing fights that don't feel authentic. Because an authentic fight, an authentic meltdown, fun to watch, I admit it. But like a fabricated fight or like behavior that like doesn't make sense because someone's trying to cause drama, like I don't want to watch that as a viewer. And I don't think that the people that they cast on New Era Survivor are the kinds of people that are trying to build a career by doing that. But it is a risk.
Yeah, you're making me think a lot about, like in every the reality shows are sort of one competition entertainment, I'm thinking about the world of sports too, where sometimes players go out of their way to be personalities,
Yeah.
or create some buzz or go viral or do something like that. Whereas some players just go out and they just want to play.
Yeah.
That's how they want to be remembered.
Yeah.
So there have always been those players. I was thinking about professional wrestling when you were first starting to talk, and there, whenever a former hero got a villain turn, a heel turn, they always loved that.
Yeah.
Like you could see them sort of eating it up because it's so fun to play the villain, for a while. But in wrestling, it's all performance. I
Yeah.
don't think it's ever a genuine competition. So that's
Yeah.
different.
Because it's so rare that someone would go up to a wrestler and be like, "You're a terrible person," because they play a villain in the ring. But in
Yeah.
Survivor, I think it's riskier to take on a personality that's not yours if that's going to be a villain personality, because I think people will assume that's who you are.
Yeah. Well, here's the difference between early seasons of Survivor and season 49. In the old days, Jeff would have said, now is the time when somebody's going to win $1 million, you know.
Yeah.
And now he's saying, this is where you make your career,
Yeah.
which is a big difference. It's a lot more about the game itself than it is about the, I mean, it's a lot more about the meta dimensions of being on television in some ways, playing a game
Yeah.
in a public way than it is about the actual $1 million.
Yeah. And I think that's something that Survivor has lost a bit. Like, I think there's something much more raw and human about just like 20 people who really want $1 million and
Mhm.
will do anything for, like, will do crazy things for it, like go on a beach with strangers and try to win Survivor. Like, there's not going to be, I think, that sort of like raw, like human, like desperation in the same way that there was in those early seasons. Like, I think they're all fighting for something different and something maybe a little bit, yeah, like more meta and harder to track.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And part of fighting for the thing that they're fighting for now is, you're right, is building a personality. And I think that it's interesting to think about like that sort of element of it. Like, are they building authentic and fun to watch personalities, or are they putting on some sort of facade that I'm supposed to be liking but is kind of hard to watch and not that fun? Or are they like putting on a successful facade that is fun to watch? I don't know.
Yeah. And it's a collaboration too with the editors and the producers. For example, it struck me that I don't know, I wouldn't have known from the edit that all of those players would have instantly said that Sophie, Yellow Sophie, was the target, that she was the best player, that she was the one that they needed to take out. I mean, she must be doing something in the game that hasn't quite made the edit that makes her seem like a bigger threat than we've seen so far. And I'm curious about that. I have a feeling, uh, again, she's not, I don't know, maybe she is going to last a long time and we're just now starting to see, the mother, and we're starting to learn a little bit more about her. But I still have this feeling that, and again, I'm not watching pure gameplay, I'm watching the edit, you know?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the meta game, instead of the game. And I don't know how I feel about that. I'm entertained, but my viewing experience is not as pure, maybe. It's paying attention to things that are external to them or their gameplay, just pure gameplay. So,
Yeah. Which is just, I think, a facet of a show that's been on for 50 years. Like, I think I'm not 50 years, but
years.
50 seasons, 25 years.
25 years, yeah.
You're not that old.
Thank you.
I
I did,
just,
we did watch the first season when one of you was just a wee thing.
That was me.
That was you. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I feel like it's just a facet of a show that's been on for so long, and like it has to change, and like the way
Yeah.
you think about it and look at it has to change. Like either the content has to change dramatically, which we know that in the new era it does not. They are completely recycling the same um, twists and content over and over again. So something needs to change, and I think part of that is sort of how people look at the game and what they're trying to get out of it.
Yeah. Hey, we missed the good transition, but I think this is a prime episode for a segment of Amanda on Savannah.
Yeah, someone summed it up very nicely when she lost the merge-atory challenge. Although I guess it's not a merge-atory challenge because they actually did merge, kind of. But yeah, someone just said she took this really hard. She's a competitor, and that sums up Savannah for me. I think she is like such a competitor, and it is so written all over her face. And that's part of why I thought she wasn't going to make it super far in this game because everybody looks at her and sees she's a competitor, and that's the kind of person people want to vote out. But she's still here, and she dove to try to intercept
Oh,
MC's immunity idol. Oh my god. MC
oh,
had this urgent rush to find her immunity idol after the individual immunity challenge, and her one ally who knew about her idol was at the merge feast.
right.
And so she had to go do it alone, and I was really worried for her. And sure enough, Savannah comes up right as she has the clue in her mouth, obviously looking for the key. Do I think that MC should have said to Savannah, "What are you up to?" "Oh, I'm looking for a key." No. But do I think that Savannah would have left MC alone for a single second for the rest of the episode, regardless of what MC said to her in that moment? No. But the way that Savannah dove when they found that key on the ground. I think like that and she's a competitor says everything I need to know about Savannah. I think she's not in a great position in the game moving forward. She is in an alliance of three essentially now, coming out of what she thought was an alliance of I think like six.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think she's going down without a fight because she is so mad every time she loses anything, and is also straight into game mode. Like you saw when Nate went home, Rizzo looked a little shocked, but Savannah, like I said, like her eyes were pinging all around the room. She is immediately playing again. Like it doesn't stop for her.
Yeah. Yeah. That was that uh I appreciate that. I at first I thought, "Oh yeah, I wish more players were that hungry." But then I thought, "Wow, it'd be exhausting if 11 players were just doing that. I mean, people would get hurt."
Yeah, and I mean they would like it must be exhausting to be Savannah. Like I think she is just playing 100% of the time. Like players who have been on returning player seasons will often say like the one thing that was really different was how mentally taxing it was because everyone was always playing like every single second of the way, which meant you had to be lying there not sleeping, working through every scenario, and that is just like more draining even than like a lot of the physical stuff on Survivor. And I think I see that when I see Savannah. Like she has that returning player mentality. Like she is playing every second and it looks exhausting.
Yeah, it does. That was an interestingly edited exchange because you essentially got both of them saying, "I know, I know what the other one is saying, and I know what they're really feeling." Like I, you know, I know that you're giving me all this game talk. Oh, and they did a little production trick there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I'm less and less fond of the production tricks. I don't know why. I guess I'm just curmudgeonly about it this year. But
They did two things. One I liked more than the other. The one that you were talking about, I think, was that they sort of blurred out Savannah's voice as she was talking,
yeah,
and we sort of took on MC's point of view as someone who is feeling really stressed out by trying all these keys in this lock so she can get this idol while Savannah is giving her crazy eyes a little bit. The production trick that I liked, which was just a camera shot, but before they found the key, the shot panned really quickly, like as if it was a person looking around the jungle and then caught on the key, and then we see both MC and Savannah dive for the key at the same time. And I thought that was a fun shot. It's the same thing where it's sort of a point of view shot. So I don't know why exactly it worked so much better for me. I think maybe it felt like a little less forced. Like, I don't know, there's something about like a camera shot that clearly like whoever was filming in the moment like did this that just felt more, I don't know, it just felt more like I as a viewer was brought in instead of sort of brought out. And I think sometimes with these editing tricks where they're very actively trying to sort of force us into someone's perspective, like making everything blur out, like lowering all of the other sounds, like last season adding in a heartbeat, like all of that feels very like non-diegetic. Like it's not a real sound that is experienced if you're standing there in this moment. And I think it kind of draws you out. But there's something about a camera shot where it's like flipping across the jungle that brings me in for some reason in a way that the other editing tricks don't as much.
Yeah, actually, that whole sequence was designed to bring us much closer to the experience of both players as they were experiencing those exchanges and their complete lack of trust in each other and their correct reads of both of each other. And I think MC's right. Like, there's something so intense about Savannah that it is a little crazy. Or it would scare me as a player, and that's very effective. I think that what you just pointed out maybe is this is probably like film 101. It's certainly sort of like graphic narrative comic book 101. But you compare those shots of like the point of view shots that are clearly putting us in MC's experience of looking for the keys. Compare that to the shot at the end of the merge feast where the camera just goes over Sage as she's fallen back and just sort of observes her from above, and her face is very still. That was not us in Sage's experience. That was us outside of Sage observing her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it wasn't a point of view shot, I don't think. It was much more, I was much more outside of Sage thinking about her as a player and a person than I was inside of her experience of the game, which is, I appreciate those subtler camera shots and what they do for my experience of the narrative than I do the more overt ones that you were talking about.
Yeah, because I think that, and I'm still sort of working through why exactly like certain shots work for me and certain shots don't. But I think part of it is like you can tell a story about a person without inhabiting them. Like
Right.
camera angles are big, and like camera movement and like close up, like a shot from below. Like we saw a shot early on of Rizzo where they were finding out about the merge, and it was like it's game time, and it was a shot from below, and it circled around him, and we see him above, and it creates this sort of like powerful image,
Yeah.
even of someone who I think is pretty goofy most of the time, and I don't really see as a super like powerful, intimidating figure. But you see the shot from below, and you're like, yeah, like he means business.
Yeah.
But you don't feel like you're being like that is also sort of tricking the viewer. But I think that when I'm watching reality TV, I don't want to, and I don't feel like it is possible to inhabit the perspective of a character. Like I know that that is a person who is not me. So when you're introducing like sounds that I could never have heard if I was in the room or in the jungle with them, like when you're
Right.
introducing like editing tricks that even they weren't like exactly witnessing, like lowering other sounds to like emulate the experience of being really focused on something else while someone's talking to you, like like, I think those are things that work in fictional filmmaking because I'm more willing to inhabit the perspective of a character in a film when I know that character is not a real person. So why can't I inhabit them? But when it's reality TV, like that's MC. Like I don't know what MC thought in that moment, you know? And so I think that maybe that's part of why some of these shots work because they're using camera angles and editing and other like trickery that uses real footage that was shot to influence how we see a person versus using more sort of like fictional filmmaking techniques to create a narrative that like doesn't quite feel as real because it's trying to put us inside of someone else. I don't know. It's interesting, and I like that they're like playing with it. Like it reminds me of some of the more interesting documentary films that are messing with like what we see as real. But I don't think Survivor's really trying to call attention to the fact that like all filmmaking is inherently like telling a story and fictional. Like I don't think that that's what they're trying to do. I think they're just sort of bored and playing around, probably.
Maybe, but maybe they are just sort of intuitively leaning into this evolution of the game. You know, maybe they are calling more attention to some of those facets of the filmed experience. I don't know why exactly, but I don't know. I got to think about that some more. I don't know.
Yeah.
And of course, sometimes with some of those shots, like the Sage shot, what I also thought right after that was, wow, that that camera moment had to be that was a camera person probably like right over her, unless they're using drones.
Which maybe they
And
are. It did also make me wonder, like, when we saw that shot of the camera, like, moving back and forth really quickly and then landing on the key, like, had MC
oh yeah,
and Savannah already seen the key at that point? Or are they seeing the cameraman going, like, side to
yeah,
side, down, straight pointed at the key? Or did they film that after the fact? As like, and I'm saying all of this about how, oh, that shot works better because it was really there, and actually they filmed it like half an hour later to try to illustrate what that moment felt like. I don't know.
right, right. Like they both see the keys, they're both pretending that they're not there so they don't tip the hand, and then they both lunge at the same time, which might all just be camera trickery. I mean, the lunge happened, but everything
Yeah,
else
that
was
was
building
real.
suspense and point of view. Yeah, it's interesting. There was a player, I forget who, I saw an interview a long time ago, who said that being aware of and using the camera crews could give a player an advantage. You know, if you saw a camera crew following somebody out onto the beach or into the jungle, you knew something was up. You know,
Yeah.
and uh, and I'm sure that they've tried to correct for that, but it's still I realized they must coach those players to not look directly at the camera in those pretty close scenes. You know, those camera people must be circling pretty closely to those groups to get the reaction shots and the over the shoulder and the point of view shots, and they're just supposed to pretend that they're not there and never acknowledge them. They don't, you know, do the office thing where they look directly at the camera, you
I think
know.
Sage does every now and then, but yeah.
Sage, Sage does. Yeah, you're right. I think so.
Which
But
is a little bit in line with Sage's whole I don't like to be fake thing. Like, I think that Sage
yeah,
also can't really fake the idea that she's out there without camera crews following her around everywhere.
that's maybe true. Yeah, a very interesting player. Yeah. Well, what else stuck out in your great book of notes? What else was underlined or had stars written around it?
I think we've talked about a lot of it. The last thing that we didn't really talk about is back at the beginning of the episode. The merge-atory structure changed a little. So the last
Mhm.
few seasons, they've done this like big challenge right before the merge where they say they have to earn the merge and it's two teams and only one team gets the merge and only one team gets the merge feast and only one team gets to participate in the individual immunity challenge. And everybody's sick of that. Like, I think I don't know any fans that are like, I love the merge-atory thing. And this season, Geoff listened, I guess. Geoff, standing in for everyone who works on Survivor. And they sort of got rid of the merge-atory thing. Except here's the thing is, I think they kind of just fixed the rhetorical elements. Like, they fixed what they call it. Like, they said, we're at the merge, you've all merged, and they gave everybody buffs. And that's great, because the rhetorical element was one of the things that frustrated me the most. Like, what do you mean they haven't merged? And the other big thing is that now they all get to be on the jury, which I think is really good. Like, I think if you make it to the merge, there are 11 people left. Of course, you should get to be on the jury. And it's always so hard to watch that, like, last person after the merge before the jury get voted out. Like, I think sometimes we've lost people who would have been really fun to be on the jury
Yeah.
at that moment. So I'm glad that they didn't do that. But I will say, I think that the new era has this, like, infrastructure, and they have these big plot points every season, and they have recycled them since season 41. And I think that they hear that the fans are tired of the whole merge-atory thing, so they change what they call it, and they change what they're earning. But, like, they're still splitting into two teams. Only half of them get the merge feast. They're still calling it, like, earning the merge feast. And still only half of them get to compete in individual immunity. So I think, like, there are still elements of this that frustrate me and seem sort of unfair that I don't think they've changed. And they're still ultimately, like, not changing the infrastructure of the new era seasons. And I think that's, like, what is so frustrating about the new era is, like, it's just the same plot points kind of over and over again, and, like, different casts have made it more or less exciting. And I think it's never a really bad season. Like, I think it's really rare that I think that I have not enjoyed watching a new era season, but it is just, like, kind of the same thing over and over again, and you can change the rhetoric to make me happier as a viewer, but, like, ultimately I'm still watching the same ultimately really well designed challenge. Like, I love watching this challenge, but I've seen it 9 times now, and I'm ready for something else. And I'm ready for them to just get to all compete for individual immunity, because I don't think it's super fair to have to rely on a team, especially a team of 5, to decide whether you get to do individual immunity. Because MC can do her very best at this first half of the challenge, but she's relying on someone else to do the puzzle, and if they do it 5 seconds slower, then she doesn't even get to compete for individual immunity. And the whole thing about individual immunity that is so fun to watch and that makes Survivor kind of better than a lot of other competitions shows at this stage is that everybody gets a chance all by themselves to save themselves. Like, everybody gets that, and it's frustrating when they're split into teams and because of someone else's performance don't actually get that chance. So I think, like, they've fixed some of what bugged me about merge-atory, but I think that, like, the basic elements are still the same.
Well, I hear you. I disagree slightly. I think that they kept an element of merge-atory that I appreciate on a symbolic level, because it's the period of the game where you're transitioning from team to individual, so that
Yeah.
they start out with teams and they end up with individuals. It's like a rite of it's a passage, you
Yeah.
know. So I appreciate the symbolism of it, even as I understand what you're saying, that it's kind of unfair that some of those players then are not going to be able to individually compete for that. But I think I'm okay with them keeping that part of it, because I appreciate the symbolism of it. But I think they fixed the thing that bugged me the most about the last couple of seasons of Mergatory, which is you're there, you think you're merged, but then you're not. You know, like, oh, but one of you is just going to go home and not be on the jury. You know, like, that's so frustrating. It's like that irritated me so much. The fake merge, the pre-merge, you know, the false merge. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad they got rid of that.
Yeah. And I mean, it was really just, like, what they called it, because, like, they were merged, and it was just, like, frustrating from the standpoint of, like, why are you saying that they're
Yeah,
not merged when they clearly
I know,
are.
I
Um,
know, I
so
know.
I'm
But
glad they fixed that, like, to be clear.
well, listen. What do you to close it out? What do you think about the previews for next week?
The bit that was most interesting to me was what seemed to be sort of a dynamic between Sage and Blue Sophie and Savannah. Like, it seemed like Blue Sophie, and
Mm.
again, this might be like a next time on editing trick, but it seemed like Blue Sophie was telling Sage that Savannah has been a mean girl towards her, right? Was that what you heard?
I I couldn't tell, but I think maybe Blue Sophie is starting to play cor- wisely. Blue
Yeah.
Sophie is seeing the writing on the wall with that Uli thing and maybe sabotaging it. Yeah, that's
So I
interesting.
think I'm interested in what's going to happen in the next episode. I think it's all kind of up in the air in an exciting way now. Like, we see where people stand, but there's still an idol in play. There's a new one that's appeared out there. There's a knowledge
Mhm.
as power in play. Like, I think that despite the numbers being sort of uneven now, I think the power is distributed in a way that balances that out a little. And yeah, I'm excited. I think it's just going to keep getting a little bit better as we continue moving through the merge.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot. I'm curious to see how Riz and Savannah turn this into a win. If they
Yeah.
do, maybe they don't. Maybe one of them is going to go home very soon. I would say that Riz is a terrible bluffer, for example, but a pretty sweet kid. Like when he said, "What an old man I am! What a sweet kid." he said, "I feel like $1,000,000, Geoff."
Yeah.
At the challenge. I thought that was great. Everybody else is talking about how exhausted they were. He was very gung ho, and I don't know. I think he is more of a sweetie pie goofball at his core, and he just can't overcome it. And I don't know why he resists it. But um,
Yeah. And
oh
speaking of
yeah,
sweetie pies, Christina had the exact same reaction to that tribal council setup that Juan had, and that is part of my argument that I think Juan would have thrived on that original tribe because
yeah,
they jaw to the ground, exact same face. It was so funny.
yeah. You're right. Um, yeah, I know they're hinting at a kind of Mean Girl showdown. But I have a feeling that's probably not going to be what dominates the next episode. I think that's going to be a narrative element, but something else is going to happen. What I'm really wondering about is how in the world uh, it feels to me like Yellow Sophie, Christina, Alex to some degree, they're not as locked into the power cores as the other players, and I'm not certain how they're going to make their way in the game. It could be that these big the core alliances are going to start taking each other out now that everybody knows who's who.
Yeah,
If they know who's who, and I'm not sure that they fully do, but they certainly know that Juan and Sage have flipped, and that makes them the targets.
potentially,
Wouldn't it?
yeah.
Um, so I don't know. Like uh, I can't imagine that Yellow Sophie is going to make it to the final three, um, despite her longing for it.
You know,
But 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 she did a great job in the challenge. We didn't talk about the challenge really, but in the individual part, she was really great.
yeah,
And so is Steven. He is an underestimated player in my mind.
yeah. No, and
So
Sophie
that's what I'm
was
looking for. I'm looking to see what happens with the peripheral characters next episode.
Yeah, I hope they come into focus a little more. And I am excited to see. I agree that I think that this current alliance that voted together this vote, I don't know how long they're going to stick together, and I'm curious about like who will be targeting who next.
Oh, hey, you know what? I was wrapping it up, but this reminds me of something I was thinking about with Shannon. Your response to Sage was very interesting. You said like Sage gives voice to this kind of anger that a lot of young women feel in certain situations and with certain kinds of perceived hypocrisy. And my response to her was, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of her anger, like I think. And that just points out to me something about older men responding to the anger of young women, which is totally justified. No, the anger is totally justified. The fear is not. The fear is just a remnant of patriarchy, really, I think. It and I was thinking about that when I watched the episode back. I was like, oh, I understand Amanda's response to this dynamic much more clearly when I recognize my own response, and how it's informed by gender and age, in some ways. And it also occurred to me that Michelle said that you changed her mind about Shannon a little bit, but she didn't like her very much because she saw her as somebody that was like good vibes only, which is a kind of toxic positivity, and
Yeah.
that really infuriated Sage, who recognized that as something that limits genuine emotion. If you can only say and feel positive things, you're not allowed. You don't have permission to express anger or anything else, and that might be what the internet is responding to or was responding to as well.
Yeah, it's
So,
possible I'm not giving people enough credit, and like it's mostly a negative response just to this like limiting of negative emotions. And you can tell that Shannon is limiting her own negative emotions. Although I think that from what I saw on TV, she wasn't really limiting anyone else's negative emotions. Like she was really supportive of Sage's negative emotions, and maybe in a way that was sort of minimizing them a bit. Like I think that she saw Sage as sort of like bumbling and needing protection, and maybe
right,
that is minimizing those negative emotions in a
right,
specific way. But it's interesting. I feel like their dynamic for me as like a young woman is so just colored by like I don't know if it's internalized misogyny, but there's this thing that happens where I think a lot of women get this narrative of like mean girls, and they are treated poorly by women when they're younger, and they kind of go through life like seeking out these like mean girls to like get revenge on. But that's just kind of I feel like a bit of a misogynistic narrative that is in place, that like uh women who fight, one of them must be a mean girl, and
right.
like she like one of them has to be vanquished, and like there's not some sort of bigger force that is like pitting them against each other.
Yeah, I think you said that really, really well. Um, and the ways that that dynamic is just sort of reinforcing a kind of misogyny or a structural misogyny or a patriarchal sort of response to um, um, confidence and power. I don't know. There's something about that that's very interesting.
Yeah.
To me, this season, I'm paying attention to it.
Yeah, me too. Well, I love you,
Oh,
and
what? You are the sweetie pie this week.
oh, you're
I
making me
love you.
regret.
I love I love you. Always have, always will. Even if you
Yeah,
vote me out, I will still love you.
I'm not gonna vote you out of the podcast.
that that would be harsh.
um, well, I'll talk to you next week.
Okay, sounds great. Have a good
Thanks
week.
to everyone for listening and watching. For those who are watching, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm excited to
yeah,
talk more about Survivor.
yeah. Me too. Bye.
Bye.